Before they were your jeans, they were someone else's life. Right now, look at what you are wearing. Maybe it's a pair of jeans. Maybe they are your favorite, a little faded. Soft from 100 washes, perfectly broken in. You love them, but here's what nobody told you when you bought them. Before those jeans ever touched your body, they consumed more water than you drink in 3.5 years. Before they were on that shelf, rivers turned blue, children left school, and an entire sea disappeared. This is not a story about fashion. This is a story about what your jeans cost the world. Every pair of jeans starts here, in a cotton field, somewhere in the world. Cotton sounds innocent, right? Natural. It comes from a plant. How bad could it be? Very, very bad. Let me explain. Cotton is, without exaggeration, one of the thirstiest plants on earth. They grow just 1 kilogram of cotton. About the amount in a single pair of jeans requires up to 7,660 gallons of water. That's not a typo. Nearly 8,000 gallons for 1 kilogram of one plant. And blue jeans eat cotton for breakfast. Globally, denim jeans consume 35% of all the cotton produced in the entire world. One garment, one-third of the planet's cotton supply. Let's talk about the most devastating proof of what cotton farming does. There was once a sea, the Aral Sea, sitting between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. That was one of the four largest lakes in the entire world. Fishermen lived on its shores for generations. It teemed with life. Then Soviet authorities decided to divert its river to water cotton fields. Decades of cotton irrigation pulled the water away, slowly, relentlessly. Today, the Aral Sea is mostly a desert. The ships sit rusted on cracked, dry ground, kilometers from any water. An entire sea just gone, and experts estimate that a significant portion of this loss was directly driven by cotton demand, including from European and American consumers who never gave it a second thought. That's what's at the end of a cotton supply chain. A graveyard where a sea used to be. Now let's talk about the people. Uzbekistan is one of the world's largest cotton producers, and for decades, the way their cotton were harvested should make every person who's ever bought a pair of cheap jeans feel deeply uncomfortable. Every autumn, when harvest season came, the government did something unthinkable. They forced people to pick cotton, not with machines, by hand. We are talking about teachers ripped from their classrooms, doctors pulled from hospitals, students told to leave school or face expulsion, and yes, children as young as 9 years old sent to fields far from home, sleeping in cold empty classrooms, working under the scorching Central Asian sun. One woman, now in her late 20s, recalls being just 5 years old the first time she was sent to pick cotton. She was kept going every year until she was in her 20s. A Human Rights Watch report documented that the government threatened to fire people, cut their welfare payments, take their homeland, all to keep the cotton flowing for decades quietly, while the world bought jeans and said nothing. And here's the part that should really sting. That cotton traveled from those fields into factories in China, Bangladesh, Turkey, into yarn, into denim, into a pair of jeans on a shelf somewhere in New York, London, or Dubai, with not a single label wearing you where it come from. By the time it reaches you, a dozen countries touched it, and most of them paid the price. So the cotton get harvested, then what? It travels first to a spinning mill where it becomes yarn, then to a weaving factory, then to a dyeing facility, then to a cutting and sewing factory. Each of these steps happen in a different facility, often a different country. By the time a pair of jeans is finished, it may have passed through the hands of workers in 5 or more countries across 3 continents. Most of workers earn wages that would make you drop your coffee. But before we talk about wages, let's talk about something more urgent, the dye. That beautiful blue color your jeans have. That's indigo, specifically synthetic indigo, and it is one of the most chemically aggressive dyes in the entire textile industry. To dye a single pair of jeans, factories can use up to 30 gallons of water, and the chemical mixed into that water, alkaline agents, oxidatives, heavy metals, are corrosive and toxic. Now here's what the industry doesn't advertise. In towns near denim factories in Bangladesh, China and India, the rivers run blue. Literally, the wastewater from dyeing facilities gets discharged into local river, turning them the color of your favorite jeans. The fish dies. The drinking water turns toxic. Farmers downstream find their crops with herd and their children sick. One environmental scientist in India put it simply: we are committing hydrocide, we are deliberately murdering our rivers, and yet the pair of jeans at the end of this process might cost you $50 or $90 or $200 with a designer label. The true cost that was paid by someone else, someone you will never met, in a river you will never see. Now let's meet the people making these jeans. Most global denim production happens in Bangladesh, China, India, Pakistan and Turkey. These countries have one thing in common. They offer what brands call competitive labor costs. What that really means it. The workers are paid very little. A garment factory worker in Bangladesh earns on average around $100 to $120 a month, working 10 to 12 hours shift 6 days a week in a warehouses that are often dangerously hot, poorly ventilated, and far below the safety standards that brands advertise in their sustainability reports. These are mostly women, young women, who are one of the most important economic pillars in their families and one of the most exploited workers in the world. The global denim market was worth over $63 billion in 2020 and is projected to hit nearly $100 billion by 2030. The workers making those jeans, they are not seeing that money, and before those jeans ever hit a store, they have to travel. Cotton grown in Uzbekistan, spun into yarn in China, dyed in Bangladesh, spun in Vietnam, quality checked in Cambodia, shipped to a distribution hub in Germany, trucked to a warehouse in Ohio, driven to a mall in Houston. According to Levi Strauss's own calculations, the total carbon footprint of a single pair of their 501 jeans is about 33 kilograms of carbon dioxide across their entire life cycle. Oxfam compared this to a petrol car traveling more than 21 billion miles across all the jeans produced globally. The fashion industry as a whole accounts for somewhere between 2 and 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than the aviation and shipping industries combined. Your jeans have a bigger carbon footprint than your flight. Think about that. Let's talk about the number that actually tell the story. A pair of jeans that sells for $100 in a store in the United States, about $3 goes to the factory worker who made it. Around $10 to $15 goes to the actual manufacturing cost, material, machinery, electricity. The rest, shipping, import duties, retail markup, brand marketing and profit. The people who did the most physical work got the least. The brand that did the least physical work got the most. That's not capitalism at its best. That's exploitation with a very good logo. You will wear them 10 times. They will exist for 200 years. Here's a question nobody asks in the fitting room. How many times you will actually wear this? Research shows that the average garment is worn just 10 times before being discarded. 10, and this number has been falling, not rising, as social media accelerates trend cycles. Between 2000 and 2014, clothing production doubled. In that same period, consumers started buying 60% more clothes and wearing them for half as long. Think about that ratio. We produce twice as much. We wear each piece half as often. And the dirty little secret of fast fashion, brands need this. Their entire business model depends on you feeling like last season's jeans are out of style. They need you to buy more, wear less, throw away faster. Social media didn't create this, but it poured fuel on the fire. The average Gen Z consumer sees tens of thousands of fashion ads and content pieces every year, each one quietly whispering, what you are wearing isn't enough. The result, a pair of jeans that look 1500 gallons of water to create, that caused river pollution on the other side of the world, that was stitched by a woman earning $1 an hour, gets worn 10 times and then thrown in a bag for donation. But where does that bag actually go? You thought you donated them? You didn't. Let's shatter one of the most comforting lies in modern life. When you drop your old jeans into a donation bin, or ship them off to a thrift store. You tell yourself, someone will wear these, it's okay. Most donated clothing in wealthy countries get processed by sorting companies. Some a small fraction get resold locally. The rest gets bundled into balls and shipped to developing countries. Some goes to Africa, some goes to South Asia, and a stunning amount ends up in a port city in Chile, Pecuaki, on the edge of the Atacama Desert, the driest desert on Earth. Every single year, an estimated 40,000 to 59,000 tons of discarded clothing from the United States, Europe, and Asia arrives at this port. Resellers pick through it, but most of it can't be sold. It's too worn, too outdated, too cheaply made, and so it's end up in the desert. Mountains of it, jeans, sweaters, t-shirts, coats, some still with the store tags on, never worn, abandoned in the sand. In 2023, satellite images revealed that the clothing dump in the Atacama Desert had become visible from space. Let that settle for a second. Mountain of clothes visible from space, and it doesn't just sit there because most fast fashion clothing contains synthetic fibers, polyester, nylon, spandex. It does not biodegrade. Municipal landfills refuse to take it because of the chemical content, so it gets burned. When those synthetic fibers burn, they release toxic gases and microplastic into the air. The fumes dirt into nearby neighborhoods. Children grow up breathing this. A local resident who lives just a 7 minutes walk from one of the dump sites described the smell of burning plastic seeping into her home. This has been happening for 20 to 30 years, her entire life, invisible to the world. A direct consequences of someone somewhere buying a cheap pair of jeans and throwing them away after wearing them 3 times, and the clothing that doesn't burn. It sits for 2 centuries, slowly leaching chemicals into the soil and the groundwater. Your jeans will outlive you by 170 years. You didn't know, but now you do. So the next time you hold a pair of blue jeans, here's what you are actually holding. You're holding 1500 gallons of water, drawn from rivers and aquifers in some of the most water-stressed places on earth. You're holding the labor of a woman in Bangladesh who earned $3 to make them. You're holding the legacy of cotton fields that once depended on children to harvest them under threat. You're holding 33 kilograms of carbon dioxide pumped into the atmosphere. You're across a journey that touched 5 countries and 2 oceans. You're holding a product that statistically you will wear 10 times before you get rid of it. And you are holding something that you will still be on this planet, in a landfill, in a desert, or in the ocean, in the form of microplastics, long after everyone you love is gone. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. Guilt without action is unless. And the truth is, this isn't entirely your fault. These systems were designed before most of us were born by industries that never had to show us the full picture. But knowledge is power. When you know that buying fewer, better made things matters, that wearing what you own longer matters, that asking brands, where did this come from? Who made this? What did it cost the planet? That's matter enormously. The fashion industry will only change when enough people refuse to pretend. The price tag tells the full story, because behind every pair of blue jeans, there's a river that ran blue, a child who left school for the harvest, a woman stitching in the heat for $1 an hour, a desert growing bigger every year, and a question that's now yours to answer. Was it worth it? If this opened your eyes, share it, because the most powerful thing you can do right now is make sure someone else sees this too. Drop a comment below. What are you going to do differently? Subscribe for more stories about the hidden costs of the things we think we know. And I will see you in the next one.